Dear students, today our topic is about work and energy. So, firstly, we define work. So, in the term of physics, work can be defined as it done when force is applied to an object, causing it to move a certain distance in the direction of the force. So, it's mean when a force is applied on such an object, so it will move toward the direction of that force. So work can be also defined with the help of this formula. For example, work is equal to force into distance into angle. So this is the angle between the force and the direction of the motion. So in this picture here, you can also discriminate between these terminologies that work can be defined in joules and force can be the basic unit in term of the newtons and d represent the displacement which are the meters. So work is equal to force into distance into direction of the angles which are produced when the force have been applied to the object. So now we define what is the energy. So energy is the capacity to do the work. For example, it exists in various form and can be transformed from one form to the another. So there are a different form of the energies and we will discuss one by one each energy with respect to their functions. For example, the kinetic energy, potential energy, thermal energy, electrical energy, nuclear energy, chemical energy, radiant energy, sound energy, and again the kinetic energy. So there are the different types of the energy that have been used in daily life to perform the different functions. So the first type of the energy which we are discussing is the kinetic energy. So the kinetic energy can be defined as the energy possessed by an object due to its motion. For example, we can define further with the help of this formula that kinetic energy is equal to half into mass into velocity. For example, the energy possessed, the object which possess the energy by certain forces due to its motion. So this we can define with the help of these examples or this formula that m is the mass of the object and v is the speed of the object. So the energy will be the basic unit is joules and the speed determine the meters per second square. So it's mean the velocity, the direction of motion of the mass, so the object possess the energy in itself. So this terminology can be further defined with the help of this example that kinetic energy is constantly being converted to and from another form of the energy. For example, in this picture it has been showing that a moving car has kinetic energy due to its motion. When the brakes are applied, so this kinetic energy is converted into thermal energy, which is the heat energy due to the frictions of the tires, right? So the second example is that the wind, for example, moving air molecules has the kinetic energy which of wind turbines convert into the electrical energy. So this is the two examples of the kinetic energy which you can easily relate with the definition of the kinetic energy. The second example or the second type of the energy is the potential energy. So the potential energy can be defined as the energy which is stored in an object due to its position or the states. For example, when an object rely on certain position, so it store the energy and this energy is known as the potential energy. So in this picture, there is the different examples of the potential energy. For example, the first example that a book sitting on a high shelf, it has the potential to fall, right? So the second example that when the water store behind a dam, the water heights give its potential to flow down, right? Third example is that a skiers at the top of the slope or sometime a race breaking balls before it is released or sometime a pendulums before it is released. So this is the example of the potential energy that can be related with the definition of the potential energy, that those energy which store in object due to its position or state. Another type and example of the energy is the gravitational potential energy. So we can define is that when energy is stored in object due to its height above the ground, right? So this can be explained with the help of this the formula, that gravitational potential energy is equal to mass into gravity into height. So this we explain with the help of the examples. For example, this picture showing that a roller coaster at the top of the hill, when a roller coaster car is pulled to the top of the track's height hill, it gain a maximum gravitational potential energy relative to the ground. So it's mean as it descend, as it decrease, this energy transform into the kinetic energy which we discussed previously. So it's allowing it to travel along the rest of the track. So it's mean that first it is the gravitational potential energy, and in that case that is the maximum, and when it come down, so it convert into the kinetic energy. So this is the example of the gravitational potential energy, and we can relate it with the definition of the gravitational potential energy. Other type of the energy is the elastic potential energy. So this can be defined as the energy which is stored in a stretch or a compressed object, right? So this can be explained with the help of this example, that a stretch rubber bands or some bands, when you pull back a rubber band or the elastic component of a slingshot, you are storing elastic potential energy. So upon release, this stored energy is converted into kinetic energy, which is the energy of the motion to propel the object forward. So this can example can explain the concept of the elastic potential energy. Other example of the energy is the thermal energy, which we call the heat energy. So this can be defined as the internal energy of an object due to the motion of its molecules, right? So this can explain with the help of this example, that when we rubbing your hands together, a friction convert the mechanical energy. Basically, mechanical energy is the movement of your hands into the thermal energy, which is the heat energy, so which you feel as a warm, right? So this example define the terminology of the your potential or the thermal heat energy. Other example of the type of the energy is the radiant energy. So this we also call the light energy. So this defined as the energy carried by the electromagnetic waves such as the light. So this definition can be defined with the help of some of the examples. For example, this picture showing the electromagnetic spectrum examples of energy which with the help increasing energy, right? So first it has been shown that heat from a campfire or fireplace, primarily infrared radiation, is the example of the thermal energy. In the same way, the heat energy, the light and heat from a glowing light bulb is another example of the light energy. The energy that cooks food in a microwave oven or a microwave is the example of the light energy. In the same way, signals used by your cell phones or the radio waves is the example of the light energy. Also, the light emitted by a laser pointers or a visible light is the light energy, and the radiation used in the medical X-rays or the machine is the examples of the light energy. Now we define the sound energy. So the sound energy is basically the energy transmitted through a medium by the mechanical waves, right? So this we explain with the help of some of the examples. So this picture showing that there are the three type of energy, discussing the environmental sound, the technology and machinery sound, and the animal sound. So the environmental sound means that some of the thunder, the wind chimes swaying in the breeze, the rustling of the leaves, or the sound of the waves crashing. So this is the example of the environmental sound energy. In the technology and the machinery, a running phone, a car horn honking, a vacuum cleaner running, or an airplane taking off is the example of the technology and the machinery. In the animal sounds, a dog barking, a bird chirping, or the buzzing of an insect is the example of the animal sound energy. So these examples explain the terminal or definitions and terminology of the sound energy. Now we explain the chemical energy. So chemical energy can be defined as the energy stored in the bonds between atoms in the molecules. For example, when the atoms connect with each other and make a molecule, so they possess some of the chemical energy inside their features. So this is the example of the chemical energy. For example, batteries like those in your phone, remote control, or car store the chemical energy inside the battery. Some electrochemical reactions convert this stored chemical energy directly into the electrical energy. So this is the example of the chemical energy. Now the electrical energy, so basically the energy which associate with the flow of the electric charges, right? So when the electric charges flow, so it will possess energy, and this energy is the electrical energy. So this is the example of the sum of the electrical energy. For example, powering a refrigerator or washing machine or toaster. In the same way, turning on a LED light bulb or a lamps, yeah, or some running a computers or mobile phones or the television is the example of the electrical energy. In the mean way, charging and running an electrical car or electrical train, a flash of light during a thunderstorm, or a battery powering a device like a flashlight. So these are the examples of the electrical energy. Now we discuss in the last what is the nuclear energy. So basically nuclear energy are those energy which released during the nuclear reaction such as the fission and the fusion energy. So this is the examples of the nuclear energy. For example, nuclear power plant use controlled nuclear fission, splitting atoms, typically uranium, to produce the heat. So this heat used to boil the water and create high pressure steams which then spins a turbine connected to an electrical generators and producing some electricity. So this process is the major source of a low carbon power worldwide, right? So these all are the examples of the energy, their types in with respect to their different examples. So these are the topics today we are discussing about what is the energy and how it work, and what are the different types of energy used in the daily life with respect to their examples. Thank you so much.